I mean, you're made of tougher stuff. You are. I mean, you're top 1% of the nation. And all vets know that. Not everyone can make it into the military.
This is the Construction Veteran Podcast.
Construction Veteran Podcast.
Connecting and celebrating veterans in construction. Now, here's your host, Scott Friend.
Welcome back to the Construction Veteran Podcast. I'm Scott Friend. I'm excited to bring to you Chris Hood, a former colleague of mine and also a fellow Navy vet. Let's dig into it. Hey, Chris, how are you, sir?
Better not deserve.
Amen. So, Chris and I know each other. He was actually an electrician on a previous job of mine at a former company. And then he decided to take a leap to the dark side and come join the general contracting world, and is now a superintendent at a former employer of mine. So, Chris, it's good to catch up with you, man.
You too, brother.
So, I want to talk about where you're from and what your service history is. So, give us a quick rundown.
Oh, where I'm from? East Texas, generally speaking. I was born in Jacksonville, but mainly grew up in the Tyler area. A little bedtown community called White House. Uh, a lot of people know about the Chiefs quarterback being from my hometown, but I graduated in '05, so no, I don't know him.
I was
So
just
from
about to
that,
ask.
yeah, I don't know him. I do not. Never heard of the kid. Yeah, so that's where I'm from. It's where I obviously joined out of. I joined. Let's see if I can remember my dates. It was in February of the year I graduated, and then I shipped out August of that same year to be an interior communications electrician. Went to Navy boot camp in Great Great Lakes, or as we call it, Great Mistakes, and did my little 2.5 months up there. Uh, Left that command, went across the street to another training command for two schools, one called ATT, and the other one was the interior communications breaks down to IC. It's how we do it in the Navy. It's called our rate, and so went to ICA school. That's where I learned about all the equipment that we would work on, and we worked on basically everything you can think of, from telephone systems to satellite TV, paging systems, shifts, order and telegraph system, Mirai wind indicating. Uh, so I learned about all those pieces of equipment and more of like how to identify them. Then I went out to the USS Nimitz on the West Coast. At the time, we were stationed in San Diego, off of North Island, Coronado, and let's see, I think I got out there, if I remember right, March of '06, and we were going through a thing called PIA, and in that time, it's kind of a remodel of the ship. So, we're getting rid of old systems, installing new systems, updating berthings if needed, and, anything and everything. So we were in port for about the first 6 months of being there. Then we did a deployment for 6 months, on a Westpac, is what it's called when we go onto the western side of America, but to the eastern side of the world. And I've been in Jebel Ali, in the UAE, Chennai, India, Hong Kong. We went to Guam, Sasebo, Japan, and Hawaii. It's all the stops that we made. I think I got everyone. Singapore. We also went to Singapore as well. So yeah, did that time. Came back for about 2 months. Then we went back out on a surge deployment for 4 months and basically hit all the same places. But we also include Busan, Korea, and yeah, So yeah, hit Hong Kong, Busan, Korea, and Guam and Hawaii. Like I said, it was only 4 months, so it wasn't that many places that time around. By that time, I was kind of short timing, and they were about to go onto another 6 month deployment after being back for about 4 or 5 months. But I was between my EOS and when they were deploying, I was going to be getting out too quickly. And so it wouldn't be cost effective to send me out to the ship just to fly me back to the States. So that's when I got out of active duty. And then I was out for probably 2 months. And then I joined the reserves after that. And the reserves is a whole different animal to get all together.
Yeah,
So
I'm
yeah,
getting
that
an
was kind of my,
education because I wasn't a ship guy, so
oh,
this
yeah,
is
yeah.
all new to me. So, did you do the same job or the same rate in the reserves?
Yeah, actually, so it was kind of a weird story because in the Navy we have mannings. So, they don't want to overfill a rate with too many people. And when I was joining, there wasn't enough room for uh, ICs. And so I switched it to boats's mate because I had to, that it was either that or I didn't join. And so I did that. But when I went to go take my advancement exam, I sat down with it, and well, you have to sign off for it once to get your exam. And then when I did, I saw it was an IC exam, and I was like, "Hang on a second, I'm supposed to be cross-trained to boats's mate," and they're like, they couldn't find any information about that anywhere. So somehow, by the grace of God, I'm sure, I slid in and I still stayed my same rate. And once I took my advancement exam, I actually made it to second class E5 at that interval. So through the grace of God, I made it.
Yeah, good thing you didn't have to cross rate to bosun mate. So, you want to
Yeah,
tell
thank
us?
God.
Tell me real quick. So, I know you worked on a lot of communication system. What would you say in a nutshell is the IC rate and all about?
In a nutshell, you could kind of so when I was in, only certain rates had a clearance available to them. I had a secret clearance before secret clearances were cool, and in a nutshell, you would call it an electrician with a secret clearance. I was kind of the bridge between a electronics technician, which deals a lot more with mainly computer boards, circuit boards, and an actual a real electrician like I used to do, as you told in the beginning how we met. So yeah, that's kind of sum it up. That's basically what I was doing.
Okay. So let's transition here. So what are you doing right now in the construction industry?
So right now, I work for a company called Rand, and love it there. Love the guys, love the community that we have, and we do um, Class A interiors, so high end interior build outs for various clients. Currently doing one for, I believe they're the ninth largest company on the in the world. We're doing 3 floors out there. So that's what we specialize in is high-end interior finish outs. And so being a superintendent, it's my job to coordinate all the trades to work together for the end goal that the client and the architect have come up with together. And so that will include uh, putting out schedules of what needs to happen and when and by who. Problem solving is a constant battle in the TI world because I'm trying to build something to fit around things that are existing. And so when I'm doing that, I also have to keep in mind the cost effectiveness of doing a particular task or trying to find a way to deviate a little bit from the plans with appropriate notification to principal parties in order to give them the same product while maintaining other avenues open, such as at this particular job site I'm at, we have some structural steel going up to support a pour in from an old stair system that we've taken out. there was a lot of what we call MEP, mechanical, electrical, plumbing, that was in the way. And so we had to revise the steel drawings a little bit to um, go around those items, because it was more cost effective to do it that way than it was to move these particular items, because it would have been tens and thousands of dollars to move them, instead of just redrawing the steel out and relaying that steel out. So I do things like that. And I have lots of partners involved. Obviously, the trades are the subject matter experts, so we'll take their opinions into consideration. Um, Also, I have a whole team behind me in the office that helps with their experience solve those problems, and of course, what I call, since I am from East Texas and I am one of these, redneck engineering. So sometimes it's about putting lipstick on the pig, and I'm actually quite, I think I am quite good at making things happen and still having a great end product for the client.
Yeah. No, very well said, man. That sums up what we do very well. And so taking it back to when you transitioned out of the service, you didn't go right into construction, am I right?
Right. Yep. I did not.
Okay. What did you
I
do when you transitioned out?
So when I transitioned out, I actually went the kind of the standard route of going to college, getting a degree, and all that. And the way that evolved is I went to Tyler Junior College. It's the largest junior college in America, or at least it was at the time, unless something's taken its place within the last 12, 15 years. And so when I was going to TJC, it was mainly to become core complete was the main point of it, but also to kind of figure out what I was interested in doing. And so I had a couple of different paths I was interested. I was not really interested in being an electrician anymore. I just didn't really care for it at the time. I was just I would say young and dumb. I should have cared about it a little bit more. Um, and so I landed on criminal justice. I got a associate's degree in criminal justice from TJC, and since I was core complete and I am a homebody at heart, I went over to University of Texas at Tyler and took courses there and got my bachelor's in criminal justice with a minor. Graduated with a minor in guided electives, but that was really mainly because I moved to the Dallas area, and it was my second to last semester. So when I did that, and so I had to change it from minor in psychology to guided electives so that it could open up more opportunities to take online classes, so I could finish my degree on time without having to retake a bunch of classes. So that
Yeah.
was
And
kind of my
so
evolution getting out.
you didn't go into law enforcement, correct?
No, I did try. It just didn't work out. Uh, for those who don't know, it is actually quite difficult to do that. Um, so it just didn't work out for me. Just not to go too deep into personal stuff, but I am a little bit of an alcoholic, so I made some poor choices, but the good Lord got a hold of me, and so I call that my BC days, my before Christ days, and because of the decisions I made when I was young and dumb, it was really difficult for me to try to even get in there to a law enforcement agency, but everything happens for a reason, and I'm very happy where I am now.
Yeah, very good, man. So what was it that actually got you into this industry? I mean, how'd you start that path as an electrician?
Oh, well, so I got this big fancy degree from this big fancy school, and so I had to use it in some way. So my wife actually was friends with a lady whose husband was a security, we'll call it a security manager for Target, and he helped me get a job in Target. And at the time, I was what do they call it? Target protection specialist is what they called it at the time. And basically, I walked around in a rental cop uniform and try to catch people shoplifting and did counts and various other aspects to the job. But that's basically what I was doing for 40 hours a week when I moved up here to excuse me, Dallas. And so I was trying to make use of my degree. After about a year of working there, I think it was about a year, I got selected to be a manager, got promoted to being a manager. So now a salaried manager working there, helping run the stores. And it just, simply put, it was not a good fit. I was trying to make the square peg go into the round hole, and it was not a good fit. And nothing against Target per se, but uh, it just didn't work out, and thankfully so. So after that, I moved into same role but an hourly version, working for Kohl's, and I did fine at Kohl's. But I also was me and my wife were working on having our first child, which is my daughter Rylan, and typically my schedules, even though I could outline it myself, the best time for me to work was from like 11 in the morning to about 6 or 7 at night. That was kind of like my window there that I could catch people and stuff. And they had requirements that you had to open once and close once, and then the rest of it could be up to me. So, there was kind of constraints in there a little bit, but it kind of just dawned on me like, I am trying to have a family, and I'll be there for when they wake up and go to school, but I won't be there for when they go to bed. And, when they wake up and go to school, it's going to be like an hour, hour and a half maybe of interaction, and then they won't see them again until the next day. And I was, just there's got to be something better. And so I actually called my cousin who works for a company called GCATS, and they do electrical and telecommunications, and he was the project manager for telecommunications. I called him up and sent over a little quick resume, what I did in the Navy and stuff. He got me hired on, and from that point, I started going through the ropes of learning the trade. They also have a program, and it's national, but this specific one was IEC Dallas. IEC Dallas is independent electrical contractor, and it's a school. You can use your VA benefits to go through there. It's a good school. It's just like college. What you put into it is what you'll get out of it. Um, and so everyone in GCATS who signs up for the program goes through the program. When I worked for GCATS, if you got an A in your class, so there's a tuition that you have to pay, and it comes out of your check, and it's according to how much you make is how much you pay. Obviously, the higher the more skills you develop and the higher you go, that you'll pay a little bit more, but it hurts a little less because you're making more. Um, and so, but if you make an A, they give you all that money back if you make an A. And I think if you make a B, it was like 80%. And if you make a C, it was like 70% of the money came back. And of course, if you failed, you got nothing back. So I went through that program. It's 4 years long. To become an electrician, a commercial electrician, it takes 4 years, / 8,000 hours. I think they've changed the rules because they changed the rules right when I became a journeyman. I think you can take your test at 7,000 hours, but you don't get your license until 8, if I'm not mistaken, at the time of this recording. And so I went through that program. I worked for a lot of good guys. My main foreman that I had was a guy named Chris Greenwood. He taught me a lot that has benefited me now as a superintendent. Just a tremendous amount of, to put it in a nutshell, looking beyond the end of my nose at things. So an example would be, as an electrician, we have a box that's 12 by 12 inches. And you might run, 10, 15 circuits in there to make up for a general area of the job site. And so you want to put it you have to put it into an area that's accessible that could be worked on later. And so something as simple as, hey, don't put it inside the office, put it in the hallway. Or if you have to put it in the office, look at the furniture plans if you can. Sometimes it doesn't work out because they change it, but if you can, don't put it above a desk. Simple things like that where you don't have to straddle a desk with the ladder and get somebody out of the office to work on this thing. And most of the time we put it in the hallway. That way you didn't even have to go into these rooms to work on something, which helps in the future when there are problems for any service people who come through, where they can fix a problem and not disturb the office workers, because then you have to coordinate with their schedules and stuff instead of being on your kind of a little bit up more on your own schedule. And so, looking at things like that, how to run a job cleanly, because he is a neat freak. So great guy. I just really, with GCATs, I came up under a lot of really good guys. Another good guy was Josh Taylor. He taught me a lot. And so kind of went through that evolution process and became a journeyman after that.
You ended up on one of my projects
Yep.
with another guy who made the jump to the GC side, and hopefully I'll get him on here at some point. But
Uh-huh.
yeah, so you've had a good run up through the trades. I think there's a lot of respect from our guys when you have guys like us that came from some sort of a trade into the superintendent position.
I believe
Um,
so.
so in the route that you took, how do you think your time in the service really helped you out, especially as a superintendent, I'd say?
Oh man, a lot, really a lot. Leadership, obviously, first thing that comes to mind. You're not going to be able to do this job if you can't get people to follow you and listen to your advice and direction on things. Um, Being responsible, because as you well know, Scott, sometimes we have to show up, 15 minutes, 20 minutes before everybody to unlock the gate to allow everyone to go in or unlock the building. And so you have that responsibility of, unlocking the building and locking it up or locking up the side, whatever the case may be. So, understanding that timeliness, and like my chief, God rest his soul, John Craven, he would, you know, there's a few things you got to do to be successful in life. Show up on time, look professional, and give a damn. And if you can do those things, you're going to be successful, just because there's honestly just not that much going on out there. So I think that was another principal portion of it. And then, in any job where you're working at this level, dare I say, um, you're going to have to manage your own time well. And so, knowing when it's time to put in the work and times when you can relax, and understanding that, as far and going back into the leadership, that not everyone's led the same way. So some people are better with getting a boot in the butt, and some people are better you know, with the kind of the carrot method and just, enticing them through rewards and praise and appreciation and things of that nature. Um, I always I say with my guys that are on my job sites, how am I in your way? Because they're the ones who are actually building this thing. It's not me. I'm helping coordinate them, but I'm not building stuff anymore. I'm coordinating. And so they need answers from other subs that uh, other sub offices would be a little bit more accurate. And my job is to get them those answers. So if I'm in their way by not giving them an answer, I'm slowing down the project. If I'm slowing down the project, everyone ends up working more and not with their families. So keeping that in mind as well. So yeah, a lot of it boils down into leadership and weighing out the concerns of one group versus the concerns of another versus your client and what's in the client's best interest. And understanding that sometimes you have to make a decision that people don't like, but we're all there to do a job, and it will be okay in the end. Once the client's happy, everyone's going to end up being happy.
Yeah, well said. So yeah, a lot of good attributes in it. I feel like I say this every episode. A lot of the people I talk to, there's less of the, well, I learned how to turn this wrench or I learned how to do this. A lot of it is the soft skills. And
Hmm.
I don't know how you feel. This is just my belief that most veterans getting out, it's baked into them. The leadership
Yes.
skills, being on time, doing the right thing, just that integrity, the grit. And so
Yes.
I'll preach that till the day I die, that I think most often you'll find a vet and you kind of know what their values are going to be.
Yeah, I totally agree. Yeah, it's a lot of those soft skills come into play a lot. So yeah, I totally agree. And the grit aspect is, when I got hired on with Rand, I was interviewing, and I forget the question they asked exactly, but my answer was, I find ways to win. I don't lose. That's not something that Chris Hood does. So I'm going to find a way to win, no matter what odds are against me. I don't know how to give up. Giving up is not my vocabulary. Quitting is a dirty four-letter word, in my opinion. And actually, with my daughter, if I could brag a little bit to everybody, I have a
Brag
saying in my
on, man.
house.
Please do.
I have a saying in my house that can't, never, could do nothing. And so she was working on a puzzle, and it was like mermaid, or I don't know the princess name, but the mermaid one. And I was kind of sort of helping her, because you never want to do anything for your kids that you think they can do for themselves. And so I was kind of helping her a little bit of guidance, and doing a little bit there and a little bit here. And she said the dirty word that I can't stand, which is I can't do this, Daddy. And I said, can't. And she finished it for me. Never, could, do nothing. And so you got to approach this job and construction in general as can't, never, could, do nothing. It's American, not American't. You know what I mean?
Dude. Yeah, I love your mentality of, I don't quit and I don't lose, and you're gonna fail at some point. I like that, but going into
Oh
it with
yeah,
that mentality, I love that, man. I'm ready to go to war with you. Like, let's do this.
yeah,
It's extremely encouraging.
yeah,
No, that's good, man, that you carried that mentality into it. So along your journey to where you got to now, and it's been cool. I've been kind of been able to watch you from the sidelines,
yeah,
from coming up to
yep,
me, having discussions about the GC world. Now you're running jobs
yep,
by yourself. I feel like I find a lot more joy watching other people's success in this industry than I do my own.
sure.
Um, so do you think there was anything that maybe you would have changed along your journey to get where you're at now?
That's a good question, Scott. I mean, there are things I would say I would like to change, but I ended up in such a good place. I would be afraid to, honestly, because adversity is what builds your character. And when I grew up, I kind of split my time between my granddaddy's farm and, being kind of a city boy a little bit. And, you know, growing up with that farm mentality, and he was born, oh gosh, I think 1898 or something, right at the turn of the 2 centuries ago. Um, and I mean, that's just the mentality they all had back then, is you can't, never, could do nothing. And so he worked on his farm. He was a carpenter before that, and actually a carpenter in World War II on a carrier. I don't know. I don't remember which carrier though, because back then the carriers had a wood deck on them, and so he would fix them when they got wore out or whatever. And so yeah, that this job, you got to have that grit. You got to have that never give up attitude, especially when you're doing TI work. Ground up is a different animal, and I can't speak a lot to it, but from my understanding, it's in ways easier, because you're not having to build around something. You can just build it the way it needs to go, you know. Whereas TI work, you're building around things all the time, and you're always contrasting cost versus quality constantly. And yeah, so yeah,
Yeah, and speed.
And
Schedule's
speed.
king.
Oh my God. Yeah, speed. They want it all. They want money, quality, and speed, and it's
Yeah,
it's difficult to do. Very difficult. But that's why
they
I
want
love
it
it. It's
cheap
always a
and fast.
challenge. Yeah, it's always a challenge. When I worked at Target, I sat behind a desk a lot. And Kohl's, I sat behind a desk a lot, and I don't know how people do it. My hat's off to them. I couldn't do it, and I'm happy I get to walk around and look at stuff and work together to solve a problem. It really is a lot of fun. It might not seem like it's kind of like boot camp. Doesn't seem like fun at the time, but when you look back, you're like, oh, that was actually pretty fun.
Yeah, no, that's a good way to put it. And I feel like we're spoiled because we get to learn all these different trades. Like we're not the master. I mean, yes, you're an electrician, I'm a
Yep.
carpenter, so we may know our trade better, but I get to learn about so many
Right.
different trades, and I'm big on taking that knowledge home, and I can
100%.
utilize it for the house. I mean, I can't
Oh
tell you how many
yeah.
times I've called up a buddy, hey, maybe they're a plumber. I need some help. How do I do this? I got to reroute this pipe or whatever.
Yeah.
I had a septic issue actually last year, and I had a buddy. I called him. I said, "Hey, I think this local guy's giving me a load of junk. What do you think?" And he's like, "No way. You don't need to pay for that. Do this, and I got you covered." I'm like, oh, sweet. So he ended up saving me thousands of dollars, and that was just a
Nice.
relationship that I made from the job site.
Yeah.
So we're spoiled for sure that we get to learn all this stuff. Um,
Yeah.
so I want to talk about mental health real quick.
Okay.
So it's a big issue, obviously, with vets. It's a big issue in our industry. People are starting to see that because a lot of our folks, especially in the trades, get burned out because we're doing a lot more with a lot
Yeah.
less than we did, I'd say, a decade ago.
Yep.
So if you've got some brothers and sister vets out there that are just kind of trudging along and thinking, I can't do this anymore, what would you say to encourage them?
Oh man. I mean, you're made of tougher stuff. You are. I mean, you're top 1% of the nation. And all vets know that. Not everyone can make it into the military. Not everyone can successfully complete a career or even just 4 years. I only did 4 years active. I did sits in the reserve. The reserve's a wholly different animal, but um, you're tougher than this, and you're stronger than your demons. Um, speaking of demons, with my alcohol problem, um, you know, though I've never, been in combat or anything of the sort, being in the Navy, it's kind of like having almost a normal job, almost. Uh, but, you know, find someone to talk to. You will feel so much better if you just get it off your chest. And it can be me, it can be Scott, it can be any brother and sister or anyone you feel comfortable with sharing. Uh, just share, please share, because life is not as easy. We have it easier in some aspects than our grandparents and great grandparents did, but I also have it a lot tougher. There's a lot going on out there, and you um, have to be subject matter expert in so much, especially that transition from military life into civilian life. We actually at Rand, we just hired this guy, great kid. He's gonna be a freaking superstar. End of story. There's no doubt in my mind. Everyone sees it too. He came out of the Marine Corps. He was a combat engineer and good kid. And we've talked about the transitioning out of the military, and that in civilian life you're kind of left to your own ends. You don't really have that same camaraderie that we have, where you sit around with the guys and you talk about whatever, and and everyone's got that, as the Army and Marine Corps call them, battle buddy that you talk to. So find you a battle buddy that you feel like you can relate to and talk to, and talk.
Yeah, and I think that's become a lot more acceptable, I guess. Not that
Yeah,
it never was. I just think people didn't really talk about it, and you were viewed as weak.
yeah,
And what's been really cool, I'd say over the last 4 or 5 years, you see a lot of these like tier one guys that served
yeah,
at the tip of the spear saying, I got an issue and I went and got help. And that really encouraged me because I'm like, man,
yep,
I saw combat, but I wasn't shooting at folks, getting shot at, but I didn't do what these guys did. And I'm like, man, if the baddest of the bad dudes Like, just rock stars can go
Yes.
in there and get after it and get help. Why can't I? Like, what's stopping me? And I've used that same talk with some of our folks when we're doing safety stand downs. And I'm like, I don't care how cool you think you are, how badass you think you are, dude. These guys are like cream of the crop. If they can do
Yeah.
it, you plumbing superintendent or whoever, welder, you can
Yeah.
do it too, man. I mean, and you need to
Right.
get the help for yourself and for your family and for those around you.
Yep. And one little tag on there, let's just look at the ultimate man, the perfect man, who is Christ. Jesus wept, you know?
Yeah, that's the one scripture from the Bible I can actually remember because I'm
Yeah,
so
it's the
bad at
shortest
quoting.
verse.
It's the
Yeah.
shortest
Yep.
one. Yeah. No, very, and yeah, that's really cool. Good point. I'm glad you interjected that. I appreciate it. Um, so to people that are getting out, man, we need people really badly in this industry. Um,
Oh yeah.
and there's a lot of vets out there that need work, or a lot of them. I don't know about when you transition, but when I went through my TAPS class, they didn't talk about the construction industry at all. I hope that's changed over the last 13
I hope
years
so
since I've been
too.
out. Yeah, so if you do want to get that word out to people, what would you say to them to try to encourage them to get into what we do?
Honestly, I think you hit the nail on the head a moment ago with my personal belief. The best way to become the best superintendent is actually through the trades. That's the old school pipeline, and I think that is currently still the best pipeline. You actually get in there, you work with your hands, you understand how hard a task is, because it's easy to arbitrarily assign, like, I need you to do it this way. That's easy to do, but when you've actually done the work before, you've realized what you're asking of the guys. And so when I have like a really rough thing to ask of a guy, hey, listen, I know this is going to suck for you. Let me buy you lunch for doing this for me. And that's just leading from the front, as we all know. So I think getting into a trade, and two, if it doesn't work out to be a superintendent, that's totally cool. You know how much a superintendent electrician makes? As much or more as we do, you know,
Oh
easily,
yeah. Oh yeah.
easily. And all that you alluded to too, you could potentially do some side work. I did that when I was an electrician. Everyone does. Um, you could do side work, and you can make some money that way. That's what I did for my family is because I went from Target making like $56,000 a year, down to Kohl's to make $14 an hour or 15 and then 14 to become an electrician. I saved my scrap wire throughout the year and I turned it in and I would have a few $100 for Christmas. And I just slowly worked my way, developed my skills, paid attention to other trades and what they're doing, talked to them when you got a second, like you said, to learn a little bit. And before you know it, you've got all kinds of skill sets. Because I know on my very first project, I went out of town, as you know, Scott, for my first one. My eyes were as big as saucers. But actually, when I started talking with the superintendent running the job and with the guys, I was like, I actually paid attention a lot more than I give myself credit for. So I think coming in through the trades is an excellent way to go about
Yeah.
it, and you can employ those skills on other endeavors as well.
Yeah. No, I mean, you talk about side work. So my wife and I, we have a small business. It's called
Uh,
Fusion Forge Artworks. So I do custom woodwork and metalwork still. And, it
yeah,
just brings in a little bit of cash every now and again if I want to buy a new tool or have some more
yep,
money for Christmas. Actually, as of this recording, we're going to sell at a local fall festival tomorrow in our community. So hopefully we do well. We'll see.
yep. Oh, I do want to inject one thing. When I became
Yeah.
an electrician, then my first year, yeah, I was making like what did I say, $14 an hour. But I think now, if and I could be wrong, so check into it for yourselves. But I think a lot of those guys are making like $20 an hour.
Yeah.
Walking in the door, I don't know what a Phillips head screwdriver is.
Yep. Yep.
That kind of level. I don't know how to read a tape measure. That
Yep.
kind of level, making $20 an hour. When I became a journeyman, it was 20. 6 or $27, I think, maybe 28 an hour for a journeyman electrician. I know of a green journeyman like a year ago who got hired in as a green journeyman electrician, making $32 an hour. You
Yeah.
know,
And plus
they're
you factor in overtime. I mean,
overtime, saving scrap wire if you're an
yep.
electrician
If
or
you
a plumber because they save copper.
it's not unheard of folks making over 200,000 a year if they're a journeyman electrician and they're willing to travel, they're willing to save,
Oh
like you
yeah,
said. So these guys are making way more money than us. And I will say this, the caveat to that is it's not all about the money, of course. You know, there are some trades like carpenters. I'll give you, for example, as a carpenter, carpenters don't get paid very well at all in Texas. And that's confusing to me, but you know,
yeah,
it just depends on what your passion is though. So it you shouldn't look
right,
at the paycheck per se, but there is money to be made for sure.
yeah. And it's also a job, and I do want to bring up this point, Scott. It's a job that AI can never take from us.
Yeah.
Never. Not your job, not our job as superintendents, not as tradesmen. AI will never take it over because there always has to be a physical person doing the work. So
Yeah.
whereas a
There's
lot of,
just too
I
many
mean,
variables.
right, there's too many variables, too much thinking outside the box and problem solving. A lot of jobs nowadays, you have to worry about that kind of thing.
Yeah. So there's a lot of
So I
job
think it's a
security in
great
this.
place for fellow vets. We have a lot of vets in our office, lots.
Yeah. So yeah, that's a good thing to put out that you've got a lot of job security in this. And I can remember when COVID hit, I don't know if you guys got busier, but I sure got busier. It's like all this work opened up and we could do demo in the middle of the day and get
Oh,
things like the difficult part was when the logistics caught up, but physically doing the work, I mean, we got busier.
yeah, yeah, I definitely can see that. We we got busier as well when I was working for GCATS. I was an electrician at the time, and yeah, and to you like you said with the logistics, there's still lingering problems with logistics from
Yeah.
that issue. Uh, so yeah, it's a I never missed a day of work I didn't want to miss. You know what I mean?
That's a good way to put it. Yeah. Well, man, Chris, I really appreciate your time. It's good catching up with you. Do you have any parting words of wisdom for anybody?
Uh, believe in Christ the Lord would be the first one. Second one is if you're a vet and you are having some issues mentally, please talk to somebody, anybody. Find a pastor or whatever your religious affiliation is, a, a counselor of some kind. Find someone to talk to, and we'll see you out there in the field.
Best send off I've had yet, brother. I really appreciate it.
Not a problem.